hosted by NHS ED&I in Project and Change Management Network. My name is Antonia Ibeziako. I'm the Head of Education and Training for HPCA. I also lead the ED&I in Project and Change Management Network, which is a voluntary collaborative made up of volunteers from across the healthcare system. And our aim is to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in the NHS project profession by establishing career pathways, talent management, and facilitating knowledge sharing and networking. Our mission is to create a project and change management profession that is collectively representative of the diverse society that NHS projects are designed to serve. So we know that many differences and conditions have been masked and probably ignored for a long time, be it mental health, neurodiversity, physical handicap, or long-term health conditions. The list is long. And in many cases, the issues haven't actually been diagnosed or supported. And this may remain the case for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons, such as fear, cost, ignorance, or just low self-esteem. Employers have a legal obligation to make reasonable adjustments for their disabled employees under the Equality Act 2010. So Access to Work is a government-funded scheme run by the Department of Works and Pension. Access to Work covers the financial cost of disability solutions that go beyond reasonable adjustment. Today, our guest speaker is Graham Huggins, who is the CEO of NATTC. Now, NATTC was born out of Graham's lived experience with undiagnosed condition. And this event marked a significant turning point in his life. NATTC is not just an assistive technology partner or workplace coach that provides employers with practical solutions to make workplaces more inclusive and accessible for employees with neurodivergent or disability conditions. The coaches as well all have lived experiences and are very passionate about what they do. So without further ado, I will hand over to Graham to tell us more about what they do. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here and to help out with access to work. I was just wondering, a little question I have, and maybe you could put it in the chat amongst you, is are people aware of access to work to start with? Is it something that they know that they can get help with? May not know much about it, but do they know about access to work? Can we sort of get some chat going about whether or not you do or don't?
I personally didn't know about it until I met you. So
good. Okay. It is the government's best kept secret, I must admit. The amount of people that I hear that don't know about it, I still am shocked today, to be honest with you, because there is a lot of awareness going on amongst social media, amongst organisations, but you can go into some large government bodies and the odd person may know, the line manager might know, but there's like no joined up recognition amongst them. Yeah, and obviously in the chat box I've just seen that's probably about average, to be honest with you. The responses that I can see there, don't know a lot, very basic, no, not heard of, which is shocking really, because it's a government body run by DWP to help people thrive in the workplace. It's basically beyond reasonable adjustments. So if you went to your reasonable adjustments team, that they could put in certain adjustments, hybrid working, remote working, quiet rooms, sensory, noise, audio, and a number of other things that you'd expect. But when it comes to the more than, there's a government statement somewhere that I've written down. I've got information leaflets on all of this, but I'll read it out to you because I'm dyslexic, ADHD and autistic, and actually I freeze in meetings. I freeze, well, presentations. Sometimes I can freeze, I can forget my name, I can forget the knowledge that's in my brain. So let me read this. Employers have a legal obligation to make reasonable adjustments for their disabled employees under the Equality Act 2010. Access to Work is a government-funded scheme run by Department for Work and Pensions. Access to Work covers the financial cost of disability solutions that go beyond reasonable adjustments. And they'll fund almost everything as long as it's reasonable and it's a disability need. So, for example, one of the things that I needed to help me with my disabilities was a computer, and after doing a workplace needs assessment, it was recommended in Microsoft Surface Pro. And because of my disabilities, that was approved. If it would have been a business need, it wouldn't have been approved. So it must be a disability requirement. I'm going to run this presentation now. There it is. We can go through it. Any questions, please just put them in the chat box. Antonia, how are we going to manage the chat?
At the end of the presentation, I'm going to read out the questions for you, if that's okay.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be good. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so this is all about access to work, what you should know. I'm trying to demystify access to work in the process. Who needs to know about access to work? Everybody. Line managers, HR, occupational health professionals, because they do occupational health assessments. Suppliers of assistive technology, obviously employees and self-employed people, and disabled business owners. So access to work is a fund that is for people to go into employment. So if you're ready, lined up for work, or you've got a business plan and you're going self-employed, then you can apply to access to work. And you don't have to have a disability diagnostic assessment. You can just say, I am dyslexic. You don't have to have the actual diagnostic assessment, which you do within the disabled students allowance at university, for example. So who can claim access to work? As I've just said, self-employed, those in paid employment, people obviously with long-term health conditions, classified as disabled, and those in temporary employment and going into employment. How do we apply? There's a number of ways of applying. Now, I find that a lot of people, with the feedback that we've had, the help that we give on a daily basis to people, is that they can procrastinate, especially if they're neurodiverse. They don't like filling in forms. The forms that you need to fill in aren't very nice for someone that's dyslexic. I must admit, I had nightmares filling in my own, but body doubled to help someone to help me fill it in. I was lucky. I had a workplace needs assessment that fully laid out what my needs were, with a full report, which we just handed across to Access to Work, and they funded about £90,000 worth of support worker and other assistive technology and coaching. But there are a number of ways that you can apply. So applying and researching. Look inside the organisation and see if a colleague or other people like HR have supported access to work applications before, because the more people that can give you help, the more likelihood that you'll get the right solution and the right knowledge to be able to speak to access to work. Access to work, there is no area within the government that you can go to find out what it is you can apply for, what it is will help you. They expect you to know that, or to go into their assessment area, which is managed by Reed in partnership and Maximus, which I'll come to later. But basically, you've got to find out, you've got to research yourself, what solutions might help you, speak with assistive technology suppliers, speak with workplace coaches, awareness trainers, to find out what the best products are for the individuals. And it's a minefield. Good luck with finding out all of that information, because when I went through the process, when others were coming to me for training, the horror stories that I heard amongst the public sector, taking up to 2 years for people to get support, and then actually they managed to go through the access to work process, but then IT haven't helped them, no one else has helped them. They've come to the training to get the training, and none of the equipment's installed correctly, so they end up losing time, money, stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. Once you've done all of your research and you've found out what is available, and what the art of the possible is that you can actually get support for, then you can go to, they will do an assessment. Now, the assessment, I would involve your manager to get the manager to help and support you. It's going to be around about 40 minutes now. They used to take longer, but they've speeded up the whole process, and actually it's because they're trying to give out vanilla type offerings now. If you've got dyslexia, they'll give you a dictaphone, they'll give you Dragon, they'll give you a mind map, they'll give you a note taker of some type, and some coaching. It's not an assessment as you would think an assessment should be done to an individual. It's certainly not a holistic assessment, and it's not carried out by people that have been through some sort of accreditation. They've had CPD, but it's the luck of the draw in respect to what type of quality assessor or experience or wanting to help. I would always advise to meet in a quiet room and to be on time and be prepared. If you miss it, you'll get a second chance to turn up. If they try and contact you 3 times and you don't respond, they will close the application. They're under a lot of pressure and a lot of to try and hit targets. They are something in the region of about 12 to 14 weeks on average now between the application and the advisor, and they're trying to get that down to around about 6 weeks, but they're very challenged. I've heard recently that's actually gone up to 14, 15 weeks again. At one time it was up around 20 weeks. So be prepared and be informed. Be clear about what your needs are. Do the research on the potential solutions, as we said earlier. Listen to any advice provided and do ask questions. Don't just accept what they're telling you will help. We find that quite a lot of the times that they've been allocated something and it doesn't fit the IT requirements of the trust or the council, obviously in this particular case, the NHS. There's certain restrictions. It could be that they may have given you Grammarly to help with spelling, grammar and punctuation, too wordy and not concise, and actually because the servers sit in America, the data sits in America, it goes against all data protection and security policies within that trust, and so therefore they don't let you have it even though you've purchased it. Same with dictaphones and things like that for note taking. They're not very good for note taking. There are some good applications out there like Jamworks or CaptionEd that can provide Jamworks with a bit of AI with summarization and key bullet points, or If you're really going down the track, if you get auditory processing issues, then something like Caption Ed with a very high 99.9% accuracy, and it shows the individual people that are talking. So different solutions needed for different disabilities. We need to ask and explain how this to the assessor how the solutions will help you to do your job or run your business. It's about you and your role. I did mention the word vanilla earlier, and the type of assessor you get. Really much, it's like a bit like the judge. Again, it depends what side of the bed they get out of it as well. So there's no regulation for workplace needs assessments in the market in respect to accreditations until about January of this year, when a course came out, OCN level 4 from positive dyslexia. And if you've got a workplace needs assessor that's been down that road, then at least they've got some level of accreditation, and you're going to get a high level of professionalism within that assessment. You've got to agree with what they've said. The report must be agreed with the advisor. Don't be shy, raise any points at this stage that you disagree with or don't understand. Just do not leave it. Ensure that you know what happens next, and get your report and check it through, and immediately anything that you don't understand or that you think's incorrect or that you thought was different, bring it up straight away, put it in writing, because if you don't, they will they're immediately trying to close this case. And the issue is the time it takes to get the report. I would always request an email report being sent to you rather than in the post, because that's 3 weeks later, and it's very highly likely that they would have closed that. And then you may be lucky if you send an email and they open the door back up again. More than likely they've closed it. They won't even speak to you, and therefore you have to go through a complaints procedure. So you now need to start to action and set the goals to what you've done and received. So meet with all those that you need to know, agree formally to make sure it's all written down, and what to do after receiving the report. Obviously, make sure that you've read it, you've organised it, you've started to order all the equipment. And again, we see a lot of challenges in trusts, in different organisations, where they don't know where to go and order the. We get calls quite often where they want to place an order because we've been recommended on the assessment, and they don't know where to go in their organisation to get something raised. So we've got to then hold their hand, find the relevant people within the trust to get the assistive technology, the training, or the coaching arranged. But we are very proactive in making that happen. Some aren't. So you need to organise the training yourself, organise the coaching yourself, and ensure that the assistive technology has been purchased and that IT know how to install it, which a lot of the times they don't. It could take anywhere between 6 and 24 months between the grant letter and, well, sorry, the initial application and the final part of the training, as I mentioned earlier. So there is a 12-week commitment currently. They're trying to get it down to 6. It used to be 6 about 3 or 4 years ago. And at one point it went over 20 weeks. It can be confusing, it can be stressful, and it can be overwhelming, and it is inconsistent. The civil service no longer, I know, have access to work. It's all done internally now. My feelings are I can't really put a time scale on it. The next few years, the public sector will have access to work pulled as well, and they'll have to do it internally. Whether that's 1, 2 or 3 years, don't know. So how can NATTC help? We provide workplace needs assessments. Our assessors are accredited to OCN level 4. We are experts in needs assessments for all disabilities. We get recommended by the National Autistic Society, the Ministry of Defence. We carry out all their workplace needs assessments, and a whole host of other organisations. The assessments are built around easily applying to access to work and then using the assessment as the funding request, because obviously you're going to get a high level of expertise because we're experts in assistive technology, coaching, awareness training and support for different disabilities. We've recently helped an employment lawyer with an employment case up in Glasgow, where the person was told to leave their job because they couldn't do the job, but it was because they hadn't provided some hearing technology and some note-taking technology, which other employers of that particular employee had been given, and they hadn't given a workplace needs assessment. So the case went against the employer. That was only yesterday. We did a report, and see, it was not good for the employer because they hadn't followed basic practice for reasonable adjustments and even helped the individual. We've got a free case manager for access to work, where we'll support the person from the start of the application. We'll give a free advice. We won't write a report though. That is the workplace needs assessment. So we will give advice. You can come to us for all sorts of advice. Generally spend even 2 or 3 hours with people through that process, through the application, ensuring that they get the application in, because it is actually straightforward if you know your way around the system and what to do. We can get it done in sort of 25 minutes, 20 minutes, I guess, 15-20 minutes, and then supply you with information. So when you get to the advisor, you can say, well, I know what I want, and then provide them with that information. But it's not a report. And then the ongoing support to get that technology, the coaching or any awareness, whatever's in that application, external partners. And then obviously the flip side of it is ensuring that the portal for the payment systems and claiming back is set up correctly. Otherwise you have to use the post office and stuff goes missing quite often, because they've got an internal post office as well. For example, I had some claims worth a few £1,000 that went missing 3 times and took probably in the region of about 9 months to eventually get the money back. And knowing how the forms are filled in or knowing how to make the claims, again, that can be challenging. The organisation, say the NHS Trust, is actually responsible for paying for the goods or the technology or the coaching up front, and then claiming back via the portal is the best way of doing it. And then they get paid back. In the actual, if the assessment's done by one of the 2 partners, there is no contract in place to actually, when it comes to the recommendations, you might get 3 recommendations if it's above £500. Let's say one of the recommendations for a particular thing is £1. The second and third prices are £1 and a penny, and £1 and 2p. You'll get granted the £1 because that's the lowest cost, and the recommendation will be XYZ provider. But it's only a recommendation. There are no contracts. They often go out and just get pricing willy-nilly off the internet, and can get wrong pricing as well for certain equipment, because certain equipment they may have like a lower cost option to have some note taking, and that assessors found that, but without the knowledge of what's actually required properly, and then they've under financed or granted for that particular piece of note taking by in excess of £1,000 because they've chosen the wrong thing. And often if they've got equipment or hardware and they see some special offer on the John Lewis website, they choose that because it's the cheapest. You go to buy it 3 weeks later because you've just received your grant letter and it's no longer there, but you've only got a grant for £1,000 for that particular piece of hardware or something. So you've then got to go and find that or supplement it with your own monies. And if it is £1, you can only claim back the £1. If you get it cheaper, you can only pay back the cheaper price. All right, so it's whatever is on that receipt, basically, but they'll only pay up to whatever they've granted. We can supply assistive technology, training, coaching, awareness training and what have you, and we've got specializations in different categories around the coaching side of it in respect to ADHD and emotional dysregulation or RSD and executive functioning, memory, organization skills, time management, stress, concentration, listening, so things like the Pomodoro technique or memory strategies or the Eisenhower matrix are typically some of the things, but they go through a discovery phase. They would have already seen someone on a pre-call to make sure that they resonate and they feel psychologically safe. There may be areas that they want to work with a particular coach in a certain field. So it could be nursing, it could be maths, they might have dyscalculia issues. It could be, they might be a surgeon in A&E. And we've got particular skills and categories and experience, perimenopausal, for example, and a whole host of other things, mental health, well-being, suicide, etc. And that's demystifying access to work and who NATTC are.